stuff pouring out of the hive. Look at all them bees. Well, hello, everybody. How y'all doing? There's Troy.
Doing well.
What's going on?
Oh, just a whole lot of sweating going on down here. How about up
Seems
y'all's
like
way?
everybody getting it.
Yeah, sounds that way. Well, hello to everybody over in the chat. Appreciate y'all coming tonight. It's welcome to the Thursday night bee chat. Already got a nice group of chatters in here. We got a good panel going on. But I do appreciate y'all being here and hope things are going good wherever you're at. Thoughts out towards the folks in Illinois tonight. There's some awfully bad weather going on there. A lot of tornadoes hitting the ground. So I don't know do we have any of our chat family in Southern Illinois? I don't know. Do you know, Tom?
The only person that I would know of would be JW, and looking at where it's at, it hasn't hit him yet because it hasn't hit me yet.
Okay.
There's kind of some stuff up there in the north, it looks like, but that same line stretches all the way down almost into St. Louis, getting closer. Wow. So,
okay. Well, everybody keep an eye on the sky. There's Brad. I know Brad up his way. He's had an awfully lot of rain.
Evening, everybody.
Hey, Brad, how you doing?
Good. Still on solid ground, as soggy as it might be.
Yeah,
floated away.
Yeah, when you put that out, I forgot what you said. 248 millimeters or something.
Yeah, I saw the latest report. They said 255, so it's just over 10 inches of rain.
Yeah, I had to convert that right quick, and man, that turned into
I did too, because oddly enough, there's different things. I talk Celsius unless I'm cooking, and then it's got to be Fahrenheit, that sort of thing. So if we're talking snowfall or rain, it's got to be inches.
Okay.
If it's distance, kilometers or miles will do. But yeah, it was a lot. We didn't get that much. That was a ways west of me. We have family there though, and they're quite flooded.
Yeah. Is that area pretty flat?
By a lot of accounts, you'd say it's pretty flat.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of water over a flat surface.
Yeah, it doesn't run away.
No.
Real easily. Yeah, I'm still a bit in shock about Thursday night or Tuesday night.
Yeah, that was the night you were on the chat, so you were worried about the tornadoes. That was the same night.
Yeah, and I was pretty distracted too.
You were on Bob's chat,
trying to do something to distract me from the situation at hand. But we got tired of listening to the tornado alerts after the first dozen. What are you gonna do?
Yeah,
I don't know. You know, it's nice that it stays late here because we could sort of see a little bit and see if there was any funnel clouds around, but then it got dark.
That's even scarier.
Can't see a thing.
Yeah.
So we were right on the edge of it. It was a north-south line, kind of almost a northeast southwest line, and we were right on the edge. If it was another 5 miles to the west, we wouldn't have seen really much of that at all. Maybe the wind, but not the rain.
Right.
And so it just sat there going past us the whole time. So it kind of phased in and out a little bit for us, but there's definitely reports of tornadoes touching down within 10 miles of here.
That's scary.
That's too close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too close. That's the worst thing that we get. We get cold weather, we get snowstorms and all kinds of stuff, but tornadoes are this absolute worst thing that we get here.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, so we're a little rattled, and we stayed up until we thought we were kind of out of danger, and then went to bed about 1 a.m., and so we're both real tired.
Mm. Okay.
So enough about me. like I say, that's enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of me?
Oh, this chat's pretty long, Brad. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Don't have enough time.
You're just our Canadian brother up to the north.
There you
That's
go.
all.
There you go.
It's kind of unusual that I'm 100% of the Canadians here.
Yeah,
Usually
right.
more of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty diverse though. We got the west and the north and the south and
I
Midwest.
see that. You've got Glade, and Troy, and of course Tom.
Yeah, so we got everything covered. Don't have anybody up in the northeast, but we're doing pretty good. So let's go around the horn here and just see what's going on. So Glade, we can start with you. Can you give us an update on what's going on in your neck of the woods?
More hot and more dry.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Yeah. Bees aren't really making anything at all. I usually have 2 honey supers on, and I've got hives that have no honey supers and they're going backwards. I did have one yard that this is one of those instances when beekeeping is local, and this one proves it. I have one yard that is making a little bit of honey. I suspect somebody didn't cut their alfalfa quite as soon as everybody else did, and those bees brought in a little bit of nectar and filled out the one box I had on them, and then started backfilling the brood nest, and had to do a little bit of manipulation to kind of keep them under control. But as soon as that field gets cut, wherever it's at, that flow will end. So, but the rest of my bees are bringing in just barely enough to survive and nothing else. So I don't know that I'll be making a whole lot of honey this year.
Yeah. No, are you already having to feed some of your hives?
I haven't been feeding. I'm starting to notice a couple of hives that I'm thinking I'm going to have to give you a frame of food. I go steal a frame from somebody else and give them some food. Anybody know of sugar on sale somewhere? Because I'm going to need it.
Yeah, I mean, we get some here local from a Restaurant Supply. Seems to be about the cheapest I can find it. I don't know if you've got any of those around you or not. You might want to check out. They're better than my Walmart prices here, which is usually about the cheapest that I go to. So, but yeah. So
yeah, it's gonna be a rough year, but we'll get through it.
Yeah. Yeah, your story. I'm hearing that from a lot of different corners. I saw Philip pop in out of Texas. I think he's got similar troubles down his way. So yeah, I guess we're farmers that sometimes it works and sometimes it don't.
Yep.
So what's going on for you, Tom?
We're just supering. I hate to say it because I don't want to make Glade feel bad, honestly.
It's fine.
This very well may come off feeling kind of braggy, and I don't really want to do that. But if I'm going to be truthful with you, sorry, Glade. My condolences on the nectar flow. But nonetheless, it here is coming in pretty steady for about the last 8-9 days or so. And I am very thankful for that, because before that, for roughly the last 4 or 5 weeks for us, they're much like what Glade was trying to discuss there, or explain what his scenario was. Just kind of a hand to mouth scenario, definitely not enough to put anything away.
Yeah.
Which was starting to make us nervous because, for our weather here in the Midwest, when you really start getting much beyond June, you are at that point starting to get to the hotter months, the July, August dog days of summer. Summer, the days are going to be getting close to their longest point there. And, things tend to dry up because our heat will start to really take effect, usually pretty humid. But truthfully here, even the couple rains that we've had, because we've had continued rains, so thankful for that. This last Monday, we had almost 3 inches. And I'd say by the afternoon, they were definitely bringing back in nectar. You could smell it. You could hear the buzzing. You could see the bee lines in and out of the colonies. It just looking and listening and smelling the aromas, it was very clear that nectar was coming into the hive. So what I think is interesting about nectar and plants are the fact that sometimes for us, well, most of the time for us in the early spring, a little bit of cool weather or rain or a little cold snap completely affects the bloom in a large way. But in the summertime or in the later spring, when even we have rain, because it's a different type of bloom, different plant, it doesn't seem like that the rain bothers it much, so I don't know, does it wash out as regular? It recovers, what have you. So anyway, we're on a really good nectar flow right now, and it's sustaining well. It's allowing us to build up our last of our splits, getting into double deep boxes right now, putting a lot of supers on. And last week, Melissa and I wax dipped 70 something supers, and I think it was 60 deeps. I put frames in all of them. I think I might have 20 something supers left in the shop and maybe 30 deep.
So how long do you think your flow will last? What's normal?
We're on.
Okay.
Am I bouncing in and out here? I can see my thing buffering.
Yeah, you locked up there for a second.
Am I all good now?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say moving forward from this time forward, we're kind of on borrowed time. I would expect that we could probably see potentially another week of it, because even though it's gotten really hot today, like it jumped up to about 94, which is extremely hot for us right this time of year. It's supposed to drop back into the 80s, and we're going to have a little bit more rain too. Some storms moving through this evening here, probably in the next hour or so. So that'll help to wet all the plants down really well. So anyway, needless to say, we're really thankful, because I was getting pretty nervous about what we had coming into the hives already, which wasn't going to be enough to meet any of my goals, not even close. So now if we continue on for the next week, I think I'll be able to meet all of my honey goals that we had just kind of set up, kind of doing some rough calculations of what we had out there and how much will fit in the super, and might even be able to build some cut comb here. So we've got some cut comb. We used Michael's 21st bee frames. We've got those out there. I've got some wooden cut comb frames, and I have some hog half combs out there currently. So we'll see what happens.
Good deal. I know Bruce Jenny has some of those cut comb frames in some hives, and I noticed in that video he put out today, they looked really good. Mm-hmm. So that's something I might have to try. Probably not this year; it's too late this year. But I need to get some of those at Nobby and give it a shot next year. I've had more people ask for cut comb this year than I had last year, so it's kind of odd.
Yeah, we had really good luck with Michael's frames, the cut comb ones last year. The problem was, once we finally got them on, the nectar almost come to a screeching halt, and then that dropped off like this. And when that happens, bees will stop building wax. They'll come to a screeching halt. And with cut comb, you really have to have some really nice pieces in order to put them out. Yeah. And unfortunately, they didn't cap them, so I had to I hated to do it, because they were like 75% of the way there. But I had to scrap it out. And again, nothing to do with the frame or the equipment or device, all about Mother Nature. So
yeah,
you can make chunk honey out of some of those. Chunk honey can be problematic when it granulates. The only time I've ever done it is to do a few jars right before I go to a market, and then I
Mhm.
can hopefully sell those off, because if it granulates, then that's tricky.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
tricky to
Then what do
liquefy
you do?
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Melissa freezes all of ours until we need them. We'll pull them out as we need them throughout the markets and such. So
Yeah.
it works. You just need dedicated freezer space. So
Yeah.
there's the downfall.
So what's going on with you, Troy? South of Louisville.
Yeah, we're real close to Louisville. We're about 25 minutes away from Louisville. Yeah, I like it for Nobby.
Yeah, that's pretty handy.
Works out good. Bees are all doing pretty good. I looked at them today. I've got 2 production yards, counting the one here at the house, and just about finally got a little bit of consistency in the hives. I've got them all down to basically one super. Some of them have 2 on them, but basically one super. Trying to scale back and watch that close. And at the home, usually if the home yard's doing good, the other yard's doing bad, or if the home yard's doing bad, the other yard's doing good. But right now they're both about the same. They all got almost full supers, probably 7 frames full of bees, just covering just about the whole super, but they're not capped. They're heavy, but they're not capped. I did find a couple full supers, but a lot of honey in there, but they haven't capped it yet. So I'll wait. I expect to get those filled out and completed, and be able to pull those off. And then we usually, and I don't know what it is, but we usually make a super honey in July. So I'll be keeping super. I pulled them in June last year, and I'll keep them on through July this year, at least the first couple of weeks, and try to see if we get that again. But the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, we've got a super honey in July. So we'll see how those go. But the build-up hives, I've been trying to draw out. I've got a lot of comb drawn out for this year. I'm at 80. I'm trying to get to 100, and you got to get some comb drawn out if you're going to do that. But that's slowed them down a lot. They're making progress, but they're not making. A lot of them's not making much money because of it. And then I've got the build-up yard. I checked the build-up yard today. I bought some nukes this year, 10 nukes, and put them in. And they've got some of the best-looking queens and best-looking laying patterns that I've ever seen. They're building up really good. I fed them. I've been feeding them, too, to get the top deep drawed out. We got that top with that feed on there. They're really drawing it out good, and they've about got the top drawed out. I fed 4 gallons of sugar water, and they've got I've got division board feeders in, and they've got, with those 9 frames, just about every single one of them, they're pretty consistent too. They've got about 7 frames drawn. So my debate right now is, do I go ahead and feed them another gallon and try to get those other 2 frames drawn, and then maybe try to get that super in July? I'm debating about if I want to go ahead and feed them anymore, or stop now and let them fill that out on their own, because they're getting something right now. I don't know. I think it's clover, but I don't know. I'm debating about what to do. Open to advice. But I fed them all 4 gallons. They've been consistent. I fed them all 4 gallons of food, and they've taken it all. I've had buckets on them too. I got gallon buckets, and they take the division board feeders, the sugar water, and that about 3 or 4 times quicker than they take what's in the bucket. There's several holes in the lid, but they're still taking those. They take them down quick, those division board feeders, where they have that access to the top. So.
Yeah, your numbers are running about like mine. It usually takes me about 6 gallons to draw out a complete box. So that's about where you're at now. If I was in your predicament, I'd probably have to move some frames around and get the undrawn ones towards the middle of the box. Because if I just threw some more syrup on, they'd probably just start storing syrup in the middle and not draw them out on the ends. But yeah, I'm fixing to do that. I've got 500 pounds of sugar I need to draw out. I forgot how many boxes I got, 10, 12, 15, something I want to work on. But yeah, I was counting on about 6 gallons to a super that I needed to do. So takes a lot of sugar to draw wax.
It's looking good for next year. Up against that division board feeder, they've got them drawn out from there over to the last two. The last two on the other side. On like I say, every single colony was the same way. They're just missing 2 frames of having it all drawn out, which I think is really good for having drawn out that quick. I bought them from Rick Sutton's, who I bought them from. They're awesome nukes, awesome land patterns, done really good. But I bought them from him. He brings them up from Florida. He has a place in Kentucky and a place in Florida. And I thought I would get them earlier, but they had some bad weather in Florida and didn't work out. I ended up getting them, I think it was up into May before I finally got them. But they're building up really quick with all that good brood. So,
yeah, I saw your post on those killer brood patterns that you got from Rick.
Yeah,
so that looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, they're that experience that he has pays off a lot. Those are some really good looking queens.
Yeah. So Brad, back to you now. Aside from 10 inches of rain, how's the bee yard doing?
Well, the bee yard looks good. It was a good day for moving bees today. It was nice and cool, and so most of the bees were inside. I boxed up some nukes that I'd made and moved them into my honey house to sit for the night. I'll go and deliver those tomorrow. So it was a really good day for that. But otherwise, the bee yard's looking good. The bees have really been responding to the warmer weather, which is nice because we waited a long time. It was such a cold spring.
Yeah, you did.
But I've got most of them in doubles now, or at least with double boxes, so they're growing into those.
Yeah, I saw some folks replying to your post today that they lost all their bees in the rain. I guess they were in some low-lying areas and just got flooded out.
Oh, what post was that? I didn't see those comments.
That might have been, maybe that was Ian's post that they were replying to. But
I think it was. Yes, I think it was. Yeah, and again, there's so many people in Manitoba right now that are hurting way worse than I am. We had no discernible impact, other than there's water everywhere from that storm and a sleepless night. But I went out the next morning. I actually went out early because I was anxious to see if the beehives were upright, and you never knew. I had an empty pro nuke sitting on the ground out here, actually right out here in the apiary, and it was over here on the ground. It was about 50 feet away.
Wow.
That was the only thing in my yard that I could tell that had moved at all. So, it was all worry for nothing, but, when tornadoes are concerned, nothing can turn into your entire life in a flash.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But, so there's a lot of beekeepers, a lot of people hurting really bad. My hometown area is an absolute disaster. You can't even get in and out of there. It's the road washed out, everything. So anyway, we're back to that. But yeah, the bees are doing good. I'm optimistic. Get a little bit more warm weather here soon, and our honey flow should arrive in 10 or 12 days or so. We've got the moisture. All we need is the sun and warm weather, and there should be a ton of flowers.
What's the source of your flow coming up?
Just hayland and marsh around here. I'm not in a heavy agricultural area, so I don't have giant canola fields like Ian has. But then my crop can attest to that. A pretty solid yield for me is 120 pounds. A solid yield for Ian would be closer to 300. So I'm, I definitely produce a lot less honey per colony than he does. But it's a different honey. It's a I call it a wildflower. I call it a Cloburn wildflower. It's just hayland and natural areas around here. It's a little marshy, a little more wetland here. I'm very close to the south end of the giant lake. I always say it's the 11th largest lake in the world, so that's pretty big.
That's pretty big.
It's pretty big. and it actually creates a little bit of a microclimate here for a few miles around the south end of the lake. So it affects
Interesting.
my weather quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed on the map it's a big big
That's a
pond.
big lake.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's only 50 feet deep or something. It's not very deep.
Oh, really?
Well, it's a prairie lake, right? So it's
Okay.
not very deep. It's
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Huh. Well, around here, our flow after the tulip poplars, everything had dropped off. It had a little kind of like a little mini dearth, but the things have picked back up now. I put some I jarred some honey today and put the empty buckets out, and just a handful of bees showed up. So we got mimosa and sumac blooming, and we've got sourwood blooming here, but the bees don't really make much nectar off of it at our altitude. But I'm sure they're on it. But so we got another little flow going on at the moment. Don't know how long it'll last, but I still got the supers on, so we'll see what we can get. But it's been hot, definitely hot. It was already close to 90 this morning early when I was out walking the dogs, and humid, and I was just admiring how good the bees were flying, and they decided they didn't want me to watch them, so they popped me a couple of times before I could get out of there. So we went back to the house and quit watching them. They're busy, but apparently they're not very happy at the moment. So we'll leave them alone for now. But yeah. So I guess we'll get into our topic tonight, which I think might be interesting for us and the folks in the chat, about if we restarted our apiaries today, what would we do? And I kind of actually made a little spreadsheet where I can keep up with answers, so I can kind of tell what's going to win if we put together what the consensus of a perfect apiary is. Obviously that's going to change according to where you're at and what your goals are, and a million other things. But it'll be fun to run through it. I've kind of got it. What kind of bees would you like? What kind of hives? In other words, do you like wood hives, plastic hives? Number of frames? Do you like 8 frames, 10 frames, 6 frames, 5 frames? Anything in between? The location of your bees. If you could do something there, do you like them where you got them? Would you like more hives in a different location? You got screen bottom boards or solid bottom boards? People always like to know that. What kind of finish do you put on your wood hives? Do you like to paint them? Do you like eco wood? Would you rather have them wax dipped? And I don't know if we'll probably run out of time before we get through all these, but I've also got mite treatments and feeders. So we'll just kind of see where we go. I'm sure we'll meander off course here along the way many times, because that's kind of what we do. But that's the fun of it. So let's just kind of run around the horn. Types of bees. Maybe you could tell us what you've got now, and are you happy with it, or would you change it? Let's start with Glade.
Oh, I have mutts. Mostly an Italian Carniolan mix. If I had my druthers, I think I would stick with a Carniolan. I'm not doing almond pollination, so having huge clusters early is not a thing for me. But overwintering is. We can have some pretty harsh winters. We can have some pretty mild winters, but our springs are usually way up and way down, just like it was this year. We had 80 degrees in March and down to like 17 in May. So just, I think I'd probably do a Carniolan, maybe a Carney with a Caucasian mix in there.
Okay. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, so we really have I've mostly been in the Italianish side. We kind of started a few years ago going with a kind of a cross between the Italian Carniolan, much like Glade was explaining. Um, I don't know. I guess my thoughts on this were Italians, like Glade said, they can be very brood heavy, which depending on your goals may not be good. You know, there are pros and cons to, I guess, having Italians. But the nice thing about the Carniolans or Caucasians, they tend to be conservative. So having a little bit of a mix in there, we'll end up seeing some banded, you know, girls in there. They won't just be that kind of like that leathery back, kind of like you would on an Italian. They might have some stripes in there, almost like that kind of a good mix of the two, which are kind of pretty to look at. Not that that really matters at the end of the day, honestly. But I honestly don't know if I would change anything. I've been pretty content with my lessons. The only reason I probably say that is because we've just evolved along the way as our operation has evolved. And I like those lessons. At the time that I'm having a difficult lesson, I'll tell you that I don't like it. But after it's all done and we weather the storm, and I learned something, I think there's a lot of value there. So I don't know. I really don't know if I have anything that I would actually change. Melissa and I never had any mentor when we started. We kind of carved our own path and took it in the direction that we wanted to go. And I've been very happy with it, honestly. We've had a lot more success than failure, but we've had some bumps in the road. And again, I think those teach us some good, valuable lessons and help us to understand the bees a little better. So yeah, the short answer for me is I actually don't think I would change anything. I've been pretty happy with my road that we've carved for ourselves. Most everybody in here probably knows we do have 8 frame boxes. I wouldn't change that. I actually like the 8 frames. I'm built like a strong girl, so it works well for me. So I'm not as hefty and rugged as Brad there is. Troy or even Glade. Like I said, I'm built like a thick girl, so it just the 8 frame tends to work well for me. And so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty content, I think.
Okay. So nothing wrong with that. How about you, Troy?
I would probably change what I started. I started a long time ago, and I started with I bought queens from a lot from Georgia and a lot from different places. And not to step on nobody's toes, but I found out over the years that the local, we call them mutts, but they do the best for me of any, I feel like we give them a bad name or a bad rap. I got a friend that calls them pot lickers, but we don't ever have a good name for them. But over time, I bought queens and packages and from down south, and it took me a long time to figure out that they wasn't acclimated, I feel like, to our weather here in Kentucky, and they didn't do as good as our local bees did. I had the bright ideal after beekeeping for about 12 years that I was, and not to step on nobody's toes. I know everybody does it different, but I had the bright idea I was going to go treatment free, and that I would get down to some colonies that could withstand the mites and build back up from those. Well, I got down to almost 0. I got down to 1. They totally wiped out my hives, and I built back from swarm traps. A friend told me about swarm traps, and so all my bees now, except these I just bought from Rick, are all feral or mutts or whatever you want to call them. But to me, the bees that I've always had are local bees. I feel like are acclimated better to our weather and our winters, and they, to swarm and come out, get in that swarm trap, they had to survive on their own without being treated. So I feel like they're more resistant. I think it's hard to find bees resistant to mites totally. But I think they're more resistant to mites than anything I've ever had. So for me, from what I started to what I have now, I would definitely go with the local stock or local genetics.
Okay. How about you, Brad?
Well, that really spoke to me, Troy, because that's actually been proven by science. the local bees are locally adapted, not only for weather, but actually locally adapted to the local viral loads.
No.
So there's actually been some science on that. So that's a really good way to go, I think. And I try to do that too. Try to raise my own queens or get local queens. Unfortunately, in our climate, if we want to do anything early, meaning, before about the 5th of June, we're buying queens from somewhere else. We're buying queens from Northern California or elsewhere. So then, we're bringing a lot of genetics and stock in that's not locally adapted. I'm under the impression that what we call a Carniolan queen is well adapted to our climate. They're very thrifty over the winter, so that really does us good, being that we feed them up and then sequester them for 5 months, and they have to live on what's in the box. And it's not that hard to get them to not starve to death. I did have some starvation this last winter, but that was my own fault. And I have very little starvation other than that as a rule. So I think that speaks to the Carniolan traits. But I would say that they're largely mutts too. There definitely are Italian bees around here in other apiaries. So yeah, that's just about all I know. I really don't get into the conversation of what kind of queens it. Somebody asked me last weekend at they always have that one person that's asking relevant questions at a workshop. But anyway, I was showing them how to put together a cell builder, and he says, "What kind of queens do you want?" And I said, "Queens that lay eggs." And it sounded like a smart ass answer, but it's true. If she lays eggs, then that's the queen I want, right? I referenced Randy Oliver's presentations on raising queens, and he says that when it comes to selection, his very most important rule for selection is that he never breeds from a dead queen. And I think there's a lot to that, because I always want to breed from a queen who's lived through at least one winter, right? If it doesn't mean that she's the best wintering queen, but the worst wintering queen probably isn't going to make it. So it gives you some kind of an edge for wintering if that queen has raised a colony that's actually made it through winter. So I'll choose that one rather than an untested queen, an unwintered queen. So
Okay.
that's about all I have to say about that.
Okay. Well, for me, everybody knows I'm a local mutt kind of guy. I haven't bought queens. I don't know how long it's been. A long time. So I definitely just have local mutts, and they work well for me. I don't have any complaints. So I guess on the types of bees, it looks like either local mutts or maybe Carniolans. So kind of ruled the day. No fancy designer sounding bees in the mix. So that's interesting. So okay, next round, type of hive. Without getting into specific brand names, I mean, are you a wooden hive kind of guy, or would you rather jump over to the man-made hives, the plastic hives? What do you think, Glade?
Oh, you're going to make me answer that one first. I
want to see what Glade answers this, so I know how to answer mine. No pressure, buddy.
So whatever I say, you guys are all going to just say the opposite.
Basically, yes.
Yeah, we're going to say Glade's wrong.
Glade's wrong. Won't be the first time. For my area, I think an insulated hive probably makes more sense. But I've got a couple of insulated hives out here, and I like them. There's a few things that I don't care for about them. So most of my hives right now are wooden, and if I were to go wooden, it'd be a wax tip box all the way.
Okay.
There, I gave both answers now.
Yeah,
See if
I'm
you
not-
guys could
I feel
see
like
if you
that's
could
the cop
contradict
out,
that.
Wade. How are we supposed to be, non-agreeable when you do that to us?
yeah.
Yeah.
So you like plastic and wood, and if it was wood, you want wax dipped. Okay, we got that.
So let me dig deeper into that question, because this is kind of I agree with you 100%, but there's a difference. To me, there's a difference between it just about in everything in beekeeping. We make decisions for two reasons, either two reasons or one of two reasons. It's better for me as a beekeeper, or it's better for the bees. So that's my question about the preference of insulated hives or wooden hives. I know what I would say, but which one of those are you using as criteria to really make that decision for insulated hives or wooden hives?
Oh yeah.
For me, I think the insulated hives are better for the bees. For my pocketbook, the wooden hives are better for my pocketbook.
What about strictly management?
There's a couple of things. I have a couple of Apiary hives out here, and I like them. Except there's a couple of things I don't like about them. For my management style, I like all mediums. And they only come with the bottom is always a deep on a Apiary. And I wish that were not the case. The other thing I do is I usually provide an upper entrance. Once my honey supers start going on, then my hives get an upper entrance, both for a little bit of ventilation, because we do get hot out here, but just to help with that congestion down in the brood area. You relieve all that traffic going through the brood nest if you can give them an upper entrance where they can just bring in the honey and they don't have to go through that brood area. So for summer, I like an upper entrance. Well, that's a little more difficult on an Apiary hive. Now, I haven't looked at the other brands close enough to know if some of those are maybe better suited for me. But so I've stuck with the wooden hives, but I am buying wax dipped. I wouldn't, I think that was a mistake I made early on, is I went the cheaper route and just bought the typical wooden boxes. And now that I've got a few years under my belt and have repainted and scraped enough wooden boxes, that I don't want to do that anymore. Popping the extra bucks for wax dip makes more sense to me.
Now, did you say you're running all mediums?
All mediums.
Okay.
I have a few deeps that I toy around with, but
Yeah.
I prefer all mediums. I really do.
And are you a 8 frame or 10 frame?
10 frame.
Okay.
For me out here, if I do a 10 frame and I put a frame feeder, all of the frame feeders for a medium box are really wide. They take up 2 frames. So if it's got a frame feeder in it, I really only have 8 frames in the box with a frame feeder. And for overwintering, I like that couple of extra frames in the box.
Okay. Okay. Well, Tom, we know you're an 8 frame kind of guy. So, how are you on the insulated versus the wood?
So just for reference, I have run a lot of 10 frame stuff as well. When Melissa and I first got started, we bought all 8 frame. We had done a lot of research, took classes the year before, talked about it, discussed options. We have a local beekeeper who owns a store, a very nice store in our area. And she was a very, very good educator. We did take a class with her at the community college, actually, and a couple others. So we really had a good idea of what we were looking at. The only thing that I really changed from the start, she's more of a naturalist in the sense that she likes wax foundations in the deeps. And she said, as far as the supers, you can kind of go either way. If you wire them in well, they don't blow out as easily and whatever. And I agree with that. The one thing that we did change from is going from that to plastic, but a heavy wax foundation. Now there's pros and cons to all, and I don't push people in any direction. I don't know that I would say there's a right or wrong. That the one thing that I know I'm kind of getting a little bit off topic, but I'm going to pull back here in a second. But
you're fine.
My thought was when we started with wax foundation, the one thing that I noticed that I didn't like, and we probably can all agree on this to some degree. When a colony gets really busy, they've completely filled up your brood boxes and there's bees walking all over the frames and the combs, and you can barely see the comb through the bees. When you have wax foundation, often what happens is the bees will chew the bottom, maybe connect it a little bit with some burr comb, but they usually chew the bottom off. Sometimes they'll chew the side. So when they go to build swarm cells, often you'll see them hanging over the sidebar or something like that. But a lot of times, unless you shake bees off of it to clearly look, they'll hide them in the inside edges. So if you're trying to make a manipulation or something where you can't have any queen cells, it is easy to miss them. And that's what I have noticed about the wax foundation. That was one of the things I didn't like about it. The second thing is it takes a lot more time to wire it in. It's a lot more labor intensive. But I mean, I would also say that the bees tend to build a little quicker on it, unless the foundation is very heavily waxed. So again, pros and cons to all. Now going back to your question, as far as that goes, I don't know that I really have a strong opinion either way when it goes to that. Brian Zavada brought up a really good point. He said, I tend to notice that the bees don't propolize or propolize as much in the plastic hives. And I think that I agree with it. I tend to see that too. You may not get as much propolis in there. And I do think that having a lot of propolis in a colony is beneficial, except for being sticky all over our hands and what have you. It is a positive attribute for the bees, of course, and their hygiene as well as their overall health. So I do like to see a lot of propolis in there. There's certain areas that we tend to kind of scrape down, so it's easy to manage the colonies. But Melissa and I do have several Apiary hives. I've got in my home yard back here, I think I've got 16 colonies. 2 of them are 10 frame. It's the only 10 frame equipment I have, 2 10 frame Apiaries. And then I have several of the 7 frame Apiaries, mostly in deep. And I would use them as a 3 and a 3 basically, and use them for rearing queens and such. But this year I actually bought several medium supers because that's what we use for our liquid honey is mediums. And I stacked them on top of these colonies and I just put a queen excluder. So I might have, 3 frames and 3 frames in the 7 frame with the divider. I'll put another deep on. So they're running 6 at 6. I queen excluder it and then through a super. And then some of them I have a second super on. So basically I've run them kind of as nukes, but also they're able to produce some honey for me. So kind of a cool thing. So we just kind of play around with them a little bit. I think they're definitely pros and cons. I like how you can latch them together. Like Glade pointed out, they're definitely very, very heavy on the pocketbook. I do believe that product is a very good product. I have not used many others. I'm certain there are other like the Enel and things like that. I know other people have used them, liked them. I don't have any personal experience with them, so I really can't speak toward those myself. But, I think it kind of depends on the person, but it also might depend on the area. Glade is much further north, so is Brad. Me and Troy are probably about the same from north to south. Those guys experience different climates and different winters. Maybe those are beneficial to those guys in a different way than it would be for me. So they might be able to see a different benefit than I would be able to see in the Midwest for myself as far as insulation properties and things of that nature. But, by and large, I would say I could not afford to run all Apiary hives because I just finally got a count of what we have. And I am hovering like just a couple under 300 colonies this year.
Wow.
And I don't know that I could afford. I would have hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I don't know what that would end up being. I didn't do the math on it, but several $100,000 just in the hive bodies alone, of course. So it wouldn't be practical for me. But my probably go-to would be a wax dip box. Early on when Melissa and I got started, her and I did paint a lot of the hives we had. I think we had 7 or 8. I actually have since sold most of those off here, starting last year and this year. So I moved all that out of my operation where I only have wax dip equipment in there, and I've been very happy with that so far. Now I will preface it and say I'm not a 20+ year veteran like Brad, maybe some of these other guys. So I can't tell you what the longevity 20, 30 years out looks like. I can tell you what people say, but I can't tell you what that looks like. I do understand and kind of agree with the process of wax dipping. And my hope and thought is that I'm going to be able to see many, many years out of those too. So yeah, I'm kind of a wooden guy. I do like wood. I like the wax dip just for the protecting my investment basically. But yeah, when it comes to the plastic ones, don't have a strong opinion either direction, I suppose.
Do you run single deeps?
No, sir. I run almost, not at all, but almost all doubles.
Okay.
And I kind of do that for the forgiveness factor. But you'll have to remember, if you guys are mostly running 10s and you run a double, you guys have 20 frames. I'm running 8s. I only have 16. So there is a small percentage drop in that. I do believe that a good queen will lay beyond 8 frames, and you'd have to definitely control that swarm impulse much, much more heavily. I know Dodd, who lives very near me. I think he runs mostly singles, but I believe he's in 10-frame boxes. And I'm certain that a good queen can lay edge to edge during the right conditions inside that box. So you'd have to manage that much more closely. So I think, again, there's a lot of pros and cons. We do have a handful of them that I've immediately supered off an 8-frame just to get a little bit more honey out of them. I realize I'll have to come back and feed them at that point, of course, by the way our year rolls out. But I don't know. I like the double 8s. Just kind of keeps it conservative for me.
Okay, Troy, your turn.
I like wood. A lot of my the reason I do what I do, the way that I do it is, beekeeping is one of these things that people get out into, and a whole lot of people quickly get out of, and they always have used equipment for sale. And I can't tell you how many beekeepers I've bought out over the years. And it's wood painted equipment. I run double deeps, and I had the intention of keeping to either shallows or mediums on the top, but buying out other beekeepers, you get a little bit of both. So I've got both, and I've color coded them. So I like to paint because I like different colors. I want to color code my supers. I want to separate the mediums from the shallows so I can tell what they are. And then it helps. I'm in a situation where my bees are close together. I'm not able to separate them. Some of the stuff that it might be better to separate them farther than I have them, but it's not practical to do that. So having them close together, I like to have different colors where the bees can hopefully make it back to the hive that they're supposed to be in. So I do like wood. I don't use any insulation. I've said before, I use a lot of screen bottom boards, and I leave them open all year long, and I don't have any problem. We have a lot of people around here that insulate, but until I see that their survival rate or honey production or something, I'm having a hard time keeping up with them. And if I seen that, then I would definitely go to that. But I haven't seen that. So I like wood boxes, and I don't insulate.
Okay. Now all yours are 10-frame.
Yes, everything's 10-frame. I think the bees. I think they would if it was. I think bees like to go up more than they like to go out. So I've always thought that 8 frames would probably work better. But it's just not standard equipment. You're not going to, you don't buy out too many beekeepers with 8-frame equipment. So I try to stick to the standard. I can help the people that I help. I try to tell them, if you're in standard equipment, I can help you a whole lot. I've got stuff laying around here everywhere. I can give you stuff, help you with whatever you need. I can usually help you, and other people can help me because I'm in standard equipment. So I try to stick to standard stuff to get help and give help because that's what most people have.
Right. Okay.
Troy, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said 8-frame is not standard. So you have to think about that, for one. I mean, and I will say this, I think you also are 100% correct. I've probably had as many as 40 or 50 in 10-frame boxes once upon a time. But as of a few years ago, we completely eliminated all that out of our operation to completely standardize everything that we were doing. We wanted it to be as automated as we possibly could and could possibly afford to do, if that makes sense. It had to show a return on the investment if we purchased it or we're going to utilize it. But when it comes to the 8-frame, I do just to speed the process. But honestly, in an 8-frame box, you are not going to have to checkerboard as much to get the outside couple frames done. I can put a box on and they'll push up and then push out, and then before they go up. I tend to speed them along though, so I start checkerboarding one in, one out, and that really fast tracks things for us. And I love that method. But I think you completely hit the nail on the head with that when you're talking about the 8s versus 10s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When it gets to my turn, I've got all 10-frame right now. I've got one 8-frame hive that I keep around just because it was my very first hive. But I think the 8-framer, for what you just said, I think they're more efficient. The 8 frames, they use all the frames. You don't have, with the 10 frames, most of the time, that first frame on the outside is usually, not always, it's not going to have a whole lot on it. But the 8 frames, they seem to go wall to wall, that one that I've got. So, yeah, I'd probably go 8-frame if I had it to do over. But it's not my turn yet, so I don't need to go yet. So what do you think, Brad?
Well, if I had my way, I'd go 11 frames.
Free country.
He's just trying to be different now. The Canadian in him, he's got to be different from the American guys.
Well, you can do that, and I almost did too, but I chickened out because at the beginning, we don't know what we don't know, and somehow we read things and get information, and we think, hey, this is the secret that nobody else knows, and I'm going to be the smartest person in the world, and I'm going to do this and master the universe, right? Because we don't know anything. I read a lot of what Michael Bush had published, and he talked about shaving his frames to 1.25 end bars, and so he gets extra frames in his box. And I could go 11 frames if I were to go from 1 3/8 to 1.25 end bars. Then it fits perfectly to go 11 frames in a 10-frame box. The math works out 100%. And I would love to do that because then I get 10% more feed for my winter colonies.
Yeah.
Over the winter.
That would be a good experiment.
Yeah, but if I'm just going to have 10 frames that are 1.25, I don't know. They'd get all mixed up, and I'd end up hating myself. But yeah, when I started, and you said it earlier, Keith, do different things. It all depends on your goals, your objectives. And I tried to stay out of the realm of, I know everything, and I'm going to, take the path less traveled because I have all the secrets. I tried to look at what everybody else was doing. I tried to look at people who were trying, I was going to say making money at this, but I know that's a pipe dream. Look at people who were, look at people who were trying to make money at this. And when I chose my mentor, I chose a commercial beekeeper because then, things are standardized and we do things in relation to the bottom line and what's efficient, and a good mix between, like I said earlier, what's good for the bees and what's good for the beekeeper. Can the beekeeper do his work efficiently but still be good for the bees, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I settled on deep 10-frame boxes and wooden boxes. What would I change? I'd give up the idea that I'm going to build my own boxes because for one, there's no economy in building boxes in my world. It may be in other people's world if they don't have the similar situation that I have for box availability. But also the cost and total waste of time to paint boxes. Buying wax dip boxes is economical for me, and it's turnkey. I can buy the box from the store, and on my way home, stop at the out yard and put that on a hive. Done, right? And I can go do other stuff. So that was, that's one thing that I would change. It was not try to, because I do have, and I agree with Troy. I do like the painted boxes I have just because they break up the monotony of the endless piles of wax dip boxes in my apiary. I have a few painted ones, and I like that. But as a rule, I prefer, the management and the longevity of the wax dip boxes. So that's one thing that I would adjust. I don't know if that's a change so much, but it's a bit of an adjust. I actually built my first 24 boxes or something it was when I started. I actually built them from scratch. I was an idiot to do that, but I still have some of those around. Frames, I settled on wooden frames with plastic foundation. I weeded out all of the plastic frames that I possibly could, mostly because I do prefer the wooden with the plastic foundation, but I don't have a hatred for the plastic frames. But I can't tune my old Cowan uncapper to feed both wooden frames and plastic frames. I can tune it to feed either one, but I can't tune it to feed both. So I thought, I've got just, fewer plastic frames, so I'm going to get rid of those. So I did. But then they always creep back in. You buy a nuke from somebody or whatever, and you end up with a few plastics. But so I do like
Brad,
the wooden
Brad,
frames.
can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Please.
I like exactly what you said there, and I would suggest to anybody who has any idea that they might go to a larger scale, listen to what Brad just said. He said that he doesn't like the plastic foundations because they won't feed correctly through his. I believe you said on
plastic frames.
Plastic frame, correct. And the
They
difference
feed
is
differently.
yes. When you go to automation in an automated system, that is something that you definitely need to think about. Every frame is not the exact width, and particularly the full plastic frame is slightly smaller.
They are narrower
You would have to
end bars.
adjust automation for that. So
Yeah.
if people in here have an idea that they might scale it, stick with same. When it comes to automation, same is going to be your friend in that regard. So, Brad, I apologize, but I thought that was worthy to point out when you had said that.
Yeah. See, 21st, he makes his plastic frames the same as a wooden frame, and that may work, better. So the things I like about, and I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about this, but things I like about the wooden frames over the plastic as well, and I'm talking one-piece plastic frames, frame and foundation all built into one piece, is if a frame breaks, it's either going to be and if it breaks, I mean, sometimes they just come apart, which you can nail them back together, but if it breaks, it's generally going to break an ear off it, right? A wooden frame, I can take that top bar off and put a new top bar on it. That's pretty easy. Not only that, but I can actually take that frame and I can pop the foundation out of it, loaded with honey. I'll lose a little bit of honey because I'm working with it, but loaded with honey, I can pop that foundation out, take a brand new frame, slide that foundation back in and pop it into that brand new frame, and I don't lose anything. I don't lose the comb. I don't lose the honey. I don't lose if there's brood. I can totally change that. You cannot do anything like that on plastic, one piece, right? You break an ear. Maybe you can nail a frame saver to it, but you're never going to fix it. And there's no process in my beekeeping that means that a plastic sheet of foundation should go to the landfill, right? Yeah, sometimes my uncapper might eat it and smash it up, or it'll get warped somehow or broken, and then it has to be thrown out. But there's no end of life for those things. I can render them, I can wash them, I can re-wax them, I can redraw them. And a wooden frame, if it breaks and it's unfixable, it goes to the campfire, right? It's a piece of wood that's well soaked in wax, and it's a benefit, really, in that context. So I really like that there's no end of life to a plastic foundation, and if there's an end of life, it's to the wooden frame itself, but it's a piece of wood. You can throw that in the landfill or the bonfire, and I just really like that fact. So those are my reasons. But some people really like the plastics. I know when I was running what I call a double five, you take a 10 frame and you put a divider in the middle, and you put a 5 frame nuke in each side. I like the plastics because of what Tom said. They're a little bit narrower end bar, so you get a little bit more management space, and you don't need much of a difference to add up to quite a bit of extra space in those. So the plastics work really good. The bees don't propolize between the end bars as much on the plastics. The wooden ones, I'm always cleaning those off so that I can get my frames back together. So there's downsides too. And you got to build the wooden ones. You got to build the wooden one and snap the foundation in. Plastics, you take it out of the box into the hive. That's nice.
Yeah, it's true. Now, what is your configuration? Are you running double deeps?
No, I did for 2 years or so. And again, I tried to learn from commercial beekeepers, and most of them run singles. I run singles 10 months of the year and doubles 2 months of the year. So I'll run singles right up until early May, and then as the colonies are getting bigger, then I'll put them in doubles. They'll run doubles until the end of June, and then they'll go back into singles through the honey flow, and then they'll stay singles until the next May.
Okay.
So
good deal.
I ran singles for a couple of years, and my mentor kept saying, or I ran doubles a couple of years, and he said, "How come you still running doubles? How come you still running doubles?" So I said, "Okay, I'll run singles," and then all my bees starved to death. I did. I didn't get on the feed fast enough, and that's one thing you have to do with singles. You take away the honey, you need to get pails on right away.
Yeah, that's true.
And I run. You can see my hive setup here, mediums. So this blue box is my honey super, but my brood nest for summer is the bottom two, and then a queen excluder, and then this top yellow one is actually their box for winter. So it gets filled with honey first. So they get their honey first, and then anything else is my honey. So I run 2 mediums for my brood during the summer, and then I'll pull my queen excluder, and this medium will drop down, and I'll run 3 mediums for winter, which is equivalent to 2 deeps. So I run double deeps for winter, but I only run double mediums for summer. It makes checking the brood area much quicker, much easier.
Is that all the feed they get for the winter, that one box?
That top box is going to be completely full, and this middle box, the second box, is going to be probably 3/4 full, maybe almost all the way full as well.
So they'll be in 3 mediums. Is that what you're saying?
3 mediums for winter.
Yeah, which is 2 deeps.
Which is 2 deeps.
Yeah.
So I'll leave as close to 60 to 70 pounds of honey for winter. But I've noticed, and back to the discussion about an insulated hive, my insulated hives don't burn through quite that much unless they're Italians, and then they eat it all.
Yeah.
If they're Carniolans, when I started, I did something that I wouldn't recommend anybody do. My first year, I had 2 hives. I was hooked. To say the least, and my second, and neither hive survived the first winter. My second year, I went to 20 hives and bought 20 nukes. Well, I bought 10 Italian and 10 Carniolan.
Well,
And I still have some Carniolan in some of my hives, and I'll notice that the Carniolan won't come out of winter. And I think, what did you girls eat all winter long, and how are you still alive with?
it's crazy, isn't it? How
with
little
such
they
a
eat.
Yeah, and which
It's just amazing.
small cluster coming out of winter, and then I'll open up the next hive, and all the food's gone. It's completely bare. Cupboards are bare, and I'm like, oh, you're an Italian.
When you see, when you see a Carniolan cluster, when you see Carniolan colony go through, more than a deep of honey in a month in the summer, which you don't usually see because they're eating kind of as they bring it in. When they're peak season brooding, they can eat 100 pounds of honey a month, peak season. And then you put 60 pounds in that box and close the lid and come back 5 months later, and they've still got a frame or two of feed in there. It's just amazing.
I've
But
gone
that's the
through,
difference between brooding and not brooding,
Yeah,
right? It's the
I've gone
brood
through-
that eats the feed.
I've gone through winter and come out of winter with a full medium on top, still full of honey.
Yeah.
They haven't even touched it. So
I've got a question for you guys running all mediums. Do you keep your brood boxes separate from your honey supers?
I
Yeah.
do now. I didn't used to, but I do now. As you can see, I've got them painted different colors.
Is that how you keep them separate, or
Yep.
just paint them different colors?
Why?
I don't. I like the honey in comb that's not had brood in it. The other part of that is if it's never had any brood in it and I store it in my shed, I don't get wax moth in it very, very often.
Right.
If it's had
right.
brood in it, now I get wax moth in it.
That's why I would do it.
And
But
so,
that's why I wanted to know, like, why
Yeah.
have you made that decision?
so
because
I
I
try
do
to
both.
keep my brood frames and my honey frames separate.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do the same. Now, all mine are the same color. I use eco wood. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I keep them stacked separate. When I pull the supers off here in a few weeks after I let the bees clean them out for me, I'll stack them up and put moth crystals on them for the rest of the summer and winter. But I try to keep it all separate for the same reasons Glade mentioned. I just like to have that nice clean foundation or wax for the honey. The brood darkens it up so quick. Now I'm going to have to go through. Now I go through all my supers anyway before I store them and clean them up and scrape all the burr comb off. And I'll have quite a few dark frames in there in my supers this year because I had so much trouble with nectar in the brood boxes and having to pull frames up because they were getting plugged out. So I'll have to get some of that dark comb back out of my supers and I'll still put that on crystals over the winter, but then it'll be used for brood next spring, splits and swarms and whatever.
So, kind of the root of my question really is there's really, I guess, two reasons to make that distinction. It's, do you have an aversion to putting formerly used for brood comb in a honey super, or do you have an aversion to putting nice clean honeycomb in a bird chamber? And I'm hearing the latter, and I do the same. I have no problem putting something that had brood in it in a honey super, no problem at all. I've never seen any issues with that whatsoever. But I do the same thing. If I can help it, if I need brood frames, I'll look for brood frames. I don't want to just jam a bunch of nice honeycomb in the brood chamber, but I will if I need to, of course.
Mhm.
So it's the same reasoning, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't in equipment. We talked about insulated, non-insulated, and I've never used plastic hives, but I use polystyrene hives, and I do the bees like them. I don't like them better than wood, but the bees like them. and that's why I like them. They can't be. Nobody can tell me they're as robust as wood, but the bees do appreciate them, especially my climate. Even if I'm wintering indoors, when I move them outdoors in the spring, we still get some pretty cold nights. So, and even cold days, right? It's not that warm. The insulated boxes, the polystyrene boxes I run do make a difference to the bees, and that's why I use them. I don't use them for myself because I don't care for them management wise, but I don't use any of that stuff for honey. All the honey supers are wood.
Okay. Now I do. I'm just a little bit different than what Glade does. I usually run through the summer and winter. 3 mediums is my brood box or my brood area, and then the excluder comes on, and the supers go on top of that for honey season. So I don't really, especially this year, as much plugging out trouble as I've had. They'll, like I said, they'll go into winter 3 boxes, and they'll feel like a box of rocks. They'll be heavy going into winter, so they'll have plenty of feed. Our winters aren't that terrible here anyway. Last year was probably about the worst we've had, and they still came through it just fine. So as far as hey Michael,
hey Michael,
as far as wood versus plastic, for me, wood does just fine. I do the what do they call it, the condensing hive, where you have the insulated top, and I use an insulated top and an insulated inner cover with a feeder shim and my Hive Alive patty. That's my top for the winter. It works fine for me. So let's see, what were the other questions? Oh, eco wood. I've used eco wood on pretty much all my hives. If you look at any pictures, if any of the boxes are painted, they were painted when I purchased them from another beekeeper. All of them that I've ever done I've dipped in eco wood. So I'm not going to say that eco wood is as good as wax dipping by any means, but eco wood is fairly cheap, and I've never lost a hive to any kind of rot. So I've had some that have been dipped for, I don't know, 8 years, 10 years, and they get darker and darker, but they're not rotten or doing anything bad. So I like eco wood, and it's easy.
I've never had a box rot. And you mentioned something, Tom. I'm going to clarify. So this is my 11th year beekeeping, so not really that long, but I was told that wax dip boxes 20 years are easy for those.
Same.
Yeah.
That's interesting, Brad. You and I started about the same time.
Oh yeah.
2015.
15, yeah. Yeah, 10, what did I have, 11 colonies, 2015.
Y'all are making me feel old. I've been doing it 14 years.
Holy crap. How old are you?
I've been doing it about
45,
20, so. But only had a clue what I was doing probably the last 8. So that
I still don't have a clue.
I've never said I know what I'm doing.
I'm so clueless. I stand on my apiary going, I don't know what to do next. I don't know what's going on.
So what's up, Michael? How's things going down your way?
I'm in a hotel room. So
oh Lord, where are we at?
I've been half listening and half paying attention to the chat while I did some work, and I got it done. So I thought I'd hop in real quick and catch up and tell you what so I've got a little bit of everything that I run. So I've got wax dipped, and I've got insulated, and I've got wax dipped with insulated lids and with only wood lids, and a little bit of everything in between. And I kind of redid my apiary this year, the layout, to make it easier to work in, because I just kind of get everything piled up. But man, I've got anels, I've got some Apiary stuff, and I'll tell you, depending on where you're at, you may or somebody newer may or may not want insulated, because those things build up thick. But mine stay thick with bees through the wintertime. They probably consume twice as much food as everything else. And then when it's time for spring, you better get out there and get on splitting them or taking care of them and giving them room, because they explode fast. My on my wax dipped ones, I didn't know they were fine. I mean, I didn't lose any bees again this year, just like I usually most generally don't. You know, I do my own breeding, all my own Russians, treatment free for all these years, so they generally don't build up fast. So I generally don't have to worry about them until they get warm. But they were so much warmer in the insulated hives, even the little Apiary 7 framers the same way. They just caught me off guard. By January, I was putting the Hive Alive fondant, bags in them. I was putting 2 in there, then opening up another 2 and putting them loose down like the sides and make like a solid cap on top. And they would go through that whole entire layer every 2 weeks. They did that for months, just blowing through everything.
That's a lot of food.
Yeah, I had to give them so much more than everything, where on the nails, they have that propolis trap on top. Mm-hmm. I took the trap off and I would actually put a double layer of fondant. I'd unwrap it all and put it on about 2 inches thick.
Wow. Throw
that propolis mat back on top and kind of smash the lid down. And 2.5 weeks later, I would come back and it would be completely clean and gone. I spent so much money on Hive Alive fondant for the insulated hives. It was ridiculous.
Did they send you a hat at least?
Sorry.
Keeper by the case.
Did you get a hive tool out of that?
That was, of course, the ones, and I got on them early, but I left one of them thicker because I was going to use it to make comb honey, because I always let the bees get really thick, and I'll reduce the boxes down and really compress them, and I'll pull the queen out so they can't swarm while they're doing that. And I went out. I was planning on going out at like noon and taking care of it like on a Sunday. And at like 10 o'clock that morning, my neighbors came over and told me my bees were all swarming. And it threw 3 different swarms off of it one morning.
Holy cow!
And I got 2 of them, but it still requeened, and it got so thick I had to split the thing again. So, but I like wax dipped. It's nice not having to paint anything. Like I say, I've only had them for, I think this is the 2nd year I've had wax dip stuff. So in terms of longevity, I don't know, but they seem to be all right. I got rid of all my screen bottoms years ago in my area. It's harder for them to manage the airflow movement through it. 'Cause I don't put any cloak boards or anything under them. They would just stay wide open. But like, redoing your apiary, I tell you, it's made a big difference this year. I brought everything home just because I got tired of running to different outyards. But when I redid my stands, I put them all in sets of 2s, because I kept having the problem every year with drift problems where that middle hive would constantly be weaker than everything else. So this year I built stands and just put everything in 2s, so they only had a left or right option. And that's made things so much easier. I don't have that weird dipping hive in the middle of everything. I pretty much have sets of everything that are nice and strong. And it's nice that I can actually get to the sides of every single hive. I'm not trying to like squeeze the middle one out and fight with it. And I don't have to stand in front of another hive to get to the middle one to do anything to the front. I can just stand on the side, stick my hand over, and just work it real nice and easy. Actually left myself room to push a push mower around if I wanted to, around all my hives, instead of having to use a string trimmer and not having room to like climb over things and turn things sideways. And it's all those little things you don't think about when you kind of get started doing your yards. Just like I started with double deeps because that's what everybody around me did. And then I switched to all mediums, which I like running all mediums way better. But now that I've had to go put some deeps back on because I need pictures and stuff for my website and all that, it is nice having that deep box on the bottom and never having to move it around or do anything to it. Because I used to use 3 mediums as brood, and I would always have to juggle. I'd have to do something in them. So now I'm just doing a deep plus a medium for brood. So if I need to make splits, I can pull frames out, but I never have to lift that deep one and move it around and play with it. And I'm just doing a queen excluder, and I'm using all drone mediums for supers. So it'll be real obvious. I can't steal them and use them for anything else. I have to leave them just for supers, to leave them alone. I like my Russian bees. I've been doing all my own breeding from the start with them. I've never really bought any more, brought them in. But, they're all local mated, Russian moms, mutt, whatever else is out in the yard. And they're a little bit more temperamental. I mean, a little bit, but I can ride my riding mower 3 feet in front of a hive, just down my whole line, and they could care less.
Hmm.
It's generally when I get the weed eater, the string trimmer, and start banging into stuff, that's
Yep.
when they get super pissy, But so like the
I
other
do
day,
live.
I got home and it's humid. It's 105 heat index. I'm fully suited up, gloves to the max with a weed eater out there because with the rain, it's rained so much lately, the grass grew up too fast, and I wasn't about to push mow it 3 times to like cut the layers down. So I just put a whole lot of extra line in my trimmer and went out and just went to town. And man alive, because I had massive beards hanging off of them. I mean, big beards. And I'm weed eating like 6 inches from the bottom where the beard's hanging, and they didn't really appreciate it.
Good time.
So, and then thankfully I had enough room to like do that. But I was just thinking, if I gave myself 6 inches less room around things, I would have had bees falling on shoes and running up pants, and just it's all those little things. If you're redoing stuff, you start thinking, like, all right, it's like 5 years ago, I'm like, okay, when I did this, I knocked that over, and they all lit me up. Okay, I need to leave some more room to be able to do this down the road, and a little bit more room for that down the road, and there's so much to go back and change. I'd probably do all 8 frame now if I could go back, but I've got so much 10 frame, I'm not going to get rid of it. So I haven't fired a saw up in years. I just don't have time, so I'm not going to go make my own stuff like I used to. But so I'm running deep and mediums, but I'm doing all small cell. So in terms of bee numbers, I've got the equivalent of like double deeps in terms of thickness of bees. So numbers wise, it's like I'm running doubles, but they're a little bit shorter. So that top super, I don't have to reach up as high to get it off. But I generally only keep 3 supers for a hive. Usually, like this year, it's all messed up, but usually in a good flow, I'll get the first 2 supers on it and almost filled. And when it's time to need a 3rd one, I pull the 2 off to extract, and I put the 1 empty on. And then I extract and put my wet supers out in the yard or back on. I kind of always rotate those 3. So my hives are never taller than a deep and 4 mediums, no matter what I'm doing, just to try to keep cut down on equipment and just having stuff everywhere. Less stuff to store, mobs to get into. That's kind of how I do my hodgepodge of stuff.
Now, did you say you run screen bottoms?
No, I used to.
Okay.
We're in high beetle country, and I know like number 8 hardware cloth, those little baby beetles would still work their ways into our hives. I used to have vents on the top, like 1-inch vents. I would drill at an angle so the water would shed, and I put screen over them. And then it just had so much open airflow through it. The bees were just constantly sealing those up, trying to do what they want to do. So I finally just got rid of every bit of that, got rid of all my vents. Right now for lids, I'm either using, if it's a plastic hive, I'm using the lid that came with the hive. On all my wood boxes, I'm either using a wax jet migratory cover with the shim to give them a little bit of breathing room. And the feeder hole on top, I'm using the BRB feeders. I'm really liking those with the half-gallon jars on top of them when I need to feed. Or I'm using, I've been using the Be Smart lids for years, but I flip them over and I drill holes in them and I backfill them with foam instead of them just being the air insulation. So they get a little bit higher R value and have a little bit more weight to them. But I'll run those with just a standard inner cover. And that's how I don't do anything differently when I overwinter. Everything looks exactly the same. I don't add insulation. I don't put Reflectix. I don't do anything. I just let them be. My bees seal up what they want to seal, and I just let them go.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not getting super cold. We'll get in single digits here. We'll get some ice and some snow for a few days, but generally somewhere between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I can go outside and open up hives if I have to. And over the years, selecting from my bees will start flying when it's about 39 degrees. So they're pretty. I can pop a lid off and put feed on them almost anytime I need to. In the afternoon if the sun's out. I keep my bees in full sun just to help the beetles, because I really don't get a lot of beetles, but it makes it a real pain in the neck when it's July and August and you're working bees in the full sun. It's just that trade-off.
Yeah.
Toasty.
I'd rather suffer a day every few weeks and have high beetle breeding grounds everywhere in the shade.
Same.
Well, does anybody else run screen bottoms besides me and Troy?
Most of what we had originally purchased was screens. I think I've got, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 solid bottoms out there. And the interesting part about the screen bottom, I don't really use them for, I guess, what the intended use, which would be, I guess, really an IPM, I think is what the original design was. I think most people have the misconception, and again, this is absolutely true, but I think that people think that they're vented for the colony to be able to cool themselves, but that was really designed for as an IPM. But I don't know, you could argue probably either direction. Maybe they utilize it as that. Going through winter here in the Midwest, we have a bunch of the screen bottoms going into winter, and half the time they don't even have an insert in them. I throw the inserts away. They get lost. Some of them stack inside the container. Sometimes I put them in. Sometimes I don't. So I don't know. I don't know that I've ever really noticed a huge difference either direction as far as that goes. In the wintertime, if the colony is healthy, strong, and has a good food source, they tend to do pretty well in my area. So it's kind of a non-issue, much like what Michael's saying. It's like, just whatever they do, and it is what it is.
Hey, Tom, have you ever had problem? Have you had problems if your screens? I haven't. I know people that have the problem. They'll send you queens out to mate, and the queens will come back and go under the screen instead of in the hive. They find them underneath there. Have you ever had that?
I have had that, but it has not happened very often. But yes, I have seen it. I have seen it a handful of times. Usually, though, if you see a ball of bees hanging on there and it's not because they're bearding off the front, you're like, something is not going right here. What's up? And you're like, I guarantee there's a queen under there. And you go disassemble it and shake it down, and sure enough, you find a queen in there. And that's been my experience before in the past too. But it really has not been that much. So maybe it's the way I have my hive stand set up too.
I always wondered if some of the times when I thought a queen didn't come back when I used to run screens, it maybe she went in the bottom and I just never paid attention and noticed.
Could be.
Just something that simple, just being new and not realizing. I see bees under there, but not thinking, about maybe that's because I used to have a lot more trouble getting queens mated to come back than I do now. And there shouldn't be any particular reason for it. I'm doing it in the same yard. So I don't know if it's just one of those oddball things I just never noticed.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys your opinion about something. So I have always when we run the inner cover and the telescoping cover on the 8-frame equipment, I started to do this a long time ago. You'd have the round hole or oblong, depending on what brand you were using, inside of your inner cover. I would take 1/8-inch hardware cloth and I would screen them and I'd staple it on there. So the ones that I had would have a notch on one side. So what I would do is we would move a lot of colonies around and things of that nature. What I would do is if I didn't want them to have an upper entrance, I would flip it over, because if I flip it to the notch up and it's screened, they can't get out. 98% of the time, the colonies propolize that 100%, and they never remove it. So very seldom do I ever flip it down to where they have that open hole. Okay, so the real question I have for everybody, and I'm curious to know your opinions about it. Do you believe that when nectar is flowing into a hive at a pretty good rate, is it good or is it beneficial in a humid climate to have an upper entrance or upper ventilation, or do you guys believe it doesn't matter? What are your thoughts?
I would say absolutely it's beneficial until you said humid climate. I don't know anything about that. Now, it can get a bit humid here, but I don't think it's humid like a lot of places that you fellas are in.
Yeah.
And I get that mostly from a commercial beekeeper near here who has a special ventilated cover that he uses during the honey flow. And I asked him about that. What is that? What are you doing? Yeah, it's a ventilated cover, and it increases the honey crop on that hive. So based on that information, I'm going to say yes. And I've started doing that. I've done it a few times, mostly in really severely hot weather. And I use migratory covers, so they're not the same as what you're using.
Okay.
Yes, I know. And a little grabby. And what I'll do is I'll just pick up the side of the migratory cover and I'll put a stick in there so that they end up with about a ½ inch high, about an inch wide opening in the top.
Okay.
It's not very much.
Yeah.
And it's just for a little bit of ventilation, and it's also to let the drones out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I quite often trap a lot of drones in my honey supers because of the way I manage my hives.
Okay.
I think it's
So-
critical to have that ventilation. I think ventilation is one of the keys to. I know I might be becoming in the minority, but I think ventilation is one of the keys to beekeeping, especially when they're trying to. They've got all that moisture. They've got to dry out. That
Mhm.
honey and that moisture's got to go somewhere. So I use a stick. I'll have the slot in the inner cover, and I'll use a stick on top of that. And it depends on the strength of the hive, how big that stick is. If it's a weak hive, it'll be a small stick. If it's a really, really strong hive, it'll be a pretty good size stick that I put in there. But I think one of my keys to the success that I've had is putting just a stick. I call it my secret weapon, but just about all my hives have sticks in them to have that ventilation. I want it coming in the bottom and out the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I run screen inner covers, so I even take it a step further. I've ran those for years. I don't run them during the winter. I'll put them on once it warms up where the daytime temps are probably above 60, around 70. I'll put my screens on. So they get lots of ventilation, screen bottoms and screen tops. And it's worked well for me. I've only had probably 2 hives that tried to propolize the screen over. The 1 8-frame hive that I've got, they like to propolize their screen cover for some reason. Maybe one other, but that's never really been a big deal. But I like my screen inner covers. You can pop the lid off, and you can see what the ladies are up to without them being able to get out. So you can see if they're making honey, and if you got white wax, what's going on. Pretty easy. So but they've always worked well for me. But it's a bit of a oddity, I guess, beekeeping wise. Not a lot of folks run them.
I actually did something a little bit different in one of my yards that has 45 production colonies in it, and they're bringing in lots of nectar right now. What I did do is, and I'll just call it the Bob Benny method. I've heard him mention it many of times. He's got a theory behind that. I just took the upper part of the supers and I offset them about 3/16 of an inch. I suppose if you get some driving rain, it might. Well, I guess technically I offset it to where it was offset on not the prevailing side of where my weather tends to come in, but the opposite. So, again, I just thought I did, I don't know, half of them, maybe 20 something in there. And I just said, you know what, I'm just going to see what I notice. And you know what, that answer might vary depending on what your climate is. If it's dry, like Brad mentioned, if it's humid, it may not matter as much. Dodd says that he always does it, and he believes that it works. I mean, pretty consistently, our humidity here is pretty heavy. Like, you can go out there with a knife and you can cut the air almost. And that's just the reality of it for us. So, maybe it would be helpful, but maybe it would be slower for us. I don't know. I've never really concerned myself much with beard in the front of a colony. I've never seen a colony abscond. They've always done well. And I never really concerned myself with some of the small details. And I wasn't about to go out and, you can buy, and I'm not knocking what Keith said here. This works for him, but you can buy upper entrances for your honey supers and all that. And if you just run a few colonies, it really doesn't add up. It doesn't make that big a difference. But if you're running a couple hundred colonies, few hundred or more, every piece of equipment you has to be bought, maintained, stored, all those things, which doesn't seem like a big deal. But when you have to do that times however many hundred, that becomes a problem at that point. So simplistic design is always on my mind when it comes to that. Trying to save a little bit more money in a piece of equipment or something like that. So I don't know. That's why I kind of posed the question, what people's thoughts were on it.
Yeah. I usually I don't have screen inner covers on my nukes, but on the nukes I have the center hole screened over. and when I do that, they'll propolize it shut. So
Yeah.
So even on the nukes, they'll do that. But yeah, no doubt. When you have a large number of hives, that changes what's practical to do. You know, I can do things on 30 hives that you wouldn't think about doing on 300 hives. So it just don't make sense. So
Sure.
So yeah, that kind of dovetails with another question here. Probably the last one. We got about 15, 18 more minutes. I was going to try to cut it off around 10:30 Eastern, but the location of your hives. Now, all of my hives are right here on our property, which makes it really nice. I see them pretty much every day. I can keep up with what's going on, what's changed. Does anything look different? And I realize that's just not practical. Obviously, you can't have. Most folks won't have 300 hives on their own in their backyard. That would be a fun backyard. But
Yeah.
but as far as location, I mean, you guys that have out yards, I'm sure you have that you've learned from what worked and what didn't work location wise. So let's kind of go around the horn and talk about that a little bit. It might help some folks as far as looking for places to put hives. We'll hit you again first, Glade. What do you like about a bee yard? Where do you want it?
Out of sight.
Okay, that's a good answer. I understand.
Out of sight from the road, or at least far enough off the road that those two-legged critters don't want to walk clear over there and bother the hive.
Yep.
And I've had a few people, somebody come tip over my hive. I think it was a couple of teenagers, and they grabbed the bottom of it and flipped the whole thing over on its head. And I didn't know it had happened. I have no idea how many days it was upside down. The top box was over there and the other boxes were over here, and the bees were still in it. And it was early spring, and I grabbed the bottom board and put it back on the stand and put the bottom back on and put the top back on, and the bees survived, but they were open to the air for at least a couple of days. But if I can get it off the road and kind of out of sight, that's where I want it.
Okay. How about you, Tom? What's your best yards? What do you like?
Well, first of all, I'm going to applaud Glade by what he said. I think that is absolutely a brilliant answer. I've always thought the same thing myself. I don't like to have trouble at my doorstep, so I try to do everything I can to try to avoid disaster in any area or aspect of my life, including beekeeping. You know, sometimes when people don't understand bees, it makes them a little bit upset, especially if it's in a neighborhood residential setting. And you have to think about that. For Melissa and I, obviously, like Keith said, you can't keep 300 colonies in one area. You're going to be feeding constantly, and you'll be overwhelmed. Anyway, so Melissa and I have methodically chosen our sites that we keep colonies on. I would say traditionally, I wouldn't like to see more than 20 to 30 colonies in the spring. I have as many as 45 in some areas, but those will get dumbed down here, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. As soon as our honey production starts to drop off a little bit. But I always look for a location that I can drive a pickup truck straight to. I don't want to carry hives 50 feet. I don't want to carry them 100 feet. I don't want to carry them a quarter mile. I don't want to have to get a UTV out there to move stuff. I want a pickup truck to be able to drive up to there pretty much any time of the year, even if it's wet. I look for a water source that's very nearby, because bees will consume copious amounts of water whenever it's warm outside. So that's something to think about. Either a creek that will hold water, a pond, a river, something of that nature that will hold some sort of water in the middle of summer in my area. We also look at the different plants and such that we see around an area. We've kind of gauged some bee yards around those areas. Melissa and I made a lot of means. We have actually set up 3 yards within a triangle area of that to help control the population of drones that we have to the best of our ability. Let's see, some of the other things that we have thought about. Melissa, is there anything you can think about when we set up bee yards? Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned those. One other thing too is property owners. I will vet a property owner too. If something doesn't feel right to me, I just don't like something about anything, I would just walk away from it. We have amazing property owners. Not trying to be overly greedy, always trying to be accommodating. Hey, what can I do for the bees? Hey, can I do this? I have some of them out there saying, hey, we're going to plant some clover fields for you. And I'm like, that's awesome. And they want nothing in return. So just different things like that, vetting the property owner, or if you are well enough that you've got several different properties, that can be helpful too. So those are just a few things that we look for. I do like, we mentioned earlier in there, I like full sun. Michael mentioned that. I guess I will suffer a little bit in the heat of the day to not have to worry about hive beetles, because it is a reality for me being in a semi-moist and humid environment. Hive beetles are a problem, much like probably Glade doesn't have to deal with them probably at all or ever.
The only time I've seen hive beetles is when I go to Alabama and help Bruce. It's the only time. I've never seen one until then.
Yeah. Well, we have them here. They are not necessarily a problem if you monitor your space appropriately and you keep the colony strong. They tend to, for the most part, do a pretty good job on their own on keeping them out. So I don't know. Those are just a few things that we look for.
Yeah.
As far as out yards are concerned. And another thing is I want them far enough apart where there's not much competition with my own bees, unless it's mating areas, but also that I don't have to jump in my truck and drive 2 hours to 1 yard, because the reality of it is I'm going to neglect that 1 yard that's further out that I don't like to go to, and I don't want to do that. So most of our yards that we've had have always been good nectar producers and not a problem. So I can't say that I've had any real bad negatives on things as far as any of our out yards. So I don't know. That's just how we've done it, and it seems to work well for us.
Good deal. Troy, you wanna add anything to that?
I like yards that have diverse forage. It's really helped me a lot. The yard that I've got now, my other production yard, is 15 miles away from my home yard, which I didn't like it when I first got it because I felt like it was too far. But like I say, it's been a help, because when my yard's not doing well, that yard's doing well. And when that yard's not doing well, my home yard's doing well. So the diverse forage, I think, helps a lot. I was told from an early on when I started morning sun and evening shade, and I still keep that. I want trees to the west of them. It protects. I get the shade in the evening. I can come out there and work the bees in the shade, and it provides wind protection because the wind comes out of the west. So I don't have problems with blown over hives and all that stuff. So I really like that. I have a lot of people that try to, when I put a bee yard on somebody, I don't want it anywhere near, a lot say, can you put it down by the garden? Or, I don't want anything anywhere near it. I've had a lot of problems where, it's not bad when you start out with 4 or 5 hives, but then you get to 30 and then their garden that's, 75 yards away, all of a sudden they're getting stung in their garden. And it's just because there's so many bees there. So I don't want anything else around. I want it as far away from everything as I can get it. So that's a few of the things I look for when I start a new yard.
Okay. How about you, Brad? You want to add something to that list?
Well, that's essentially what I look for. I want unfettered access. If I'm talking to a landowner, I make it clear that I want to come in and out of there at any time of day or night or day of the week and do my work without notifying anyone or getting permission. That's just part of it. Just complicates the job. And that just kind of goes along with accommodating landowners, like Tom was talking about. That just makes your life so great when somebody wants the bees there and they're excited about having bees there. Physical location, of course, you need to be able to drive in there. I don't want getting the truck stuck when I'm going in. I don't want to carry equipment a long ways. I want a north windbreak for the same reasons Troy talked about. The north wind here can be very, very cold. So especially in the early and late season, it's pretty important. So, security, like Glade was saying, if they can't see it from the road, or if it's farther from the road than they want to walk, then that's important too. Of course, in my case, I'm in bear country, so it's always going to have an electric bear fence around it, and I install cellular network game cameras, so I can get updates on, just get an eyeball on the thing every day, and I can also see if there's any movement there. It'll take videos for me and show me what's going on. So that's very handy when, even an out yard is a few miles away. I even have one in my home yard, which is right here. It's 300 yards from the house. I have a camera on it just in case, because I've had bears go in there, right? So having the yard near the house like that's a real luxury. I can walk to the bee yard if I want to. I usually don't want to, but I do sometimes. And yeah, size of yard. Basically, it's how many fits on the truck, right? If you're going to take 2 loads, you go to a different yard. So typically, I'll run. In the past, I've run 32 because that's what fit on my trailer. Now I don't run yards that big. I'll run yards half that big. I'm running 16s now. It's much nicer to go to a yard of 16 and do a job and then leave.
Okay. Michael, you want to add something to that?
Man, I about got most of it. I mean, I'm doing it on a different scale. I'm doing it on a hobby scale, so I don't have to worry about all the access issues and things like you all do. Like for me, making sure it's in an area that drains really well. Like mine's up in higher elevation where water's not going to settle and make mud holes and breed mosquitoes and all that good fun stuff. I like full sun. I like convenience because, like say, I used to have them in out yards, friends' places, their farms. When I did that, I would always have them where the only way to get access to them was to go through the main path, like near the house, like not through a back road somewhere.
Yeah.
That way, if anybody comes up at night, dogs, somebody's going to know somebody's there. Like when I would keep them at work, I thought it was a really good idea to put them behind the building where nobody could see them until we started having deliveries, and every delivery person would see them. And that's perfect. If you wanted to go back and steal them, nobody could see you from the road loading them up. So it's like what seems like it would be a good idea is actually more of a problem than anything. So just as much as I don't want people to see them, now that I've got everything at home, it's not such a big deal. They're like, my yard's like 50 feet from the house. So it's convenient. I can walk in the garage and get equipment. I've got a little storage building right beside them. I've gotten really lazy. I like being able to walk within a minute or two and get anything I need. But, I'm doing it on a little small hobby scale. I probably won't ever have more than 30 hives in my backyard just because of the space. And that may even be too many for my area. This year, I may have to cut back next year just after I see what all they do. So, other than that, same old.
Yeah. So I guess having them out of sight works good as long as they're really out of sight and nobody ever sees them. Because like you say, if they're out of sight and somebody does see them, then they're out of sight if somebody wants to do some mischief. So,
and then if you have them in the woods and you have plastic hives and they're all bright pink and bright yellow and white, you got to think, if I'm trying to put them in the woods, I don't want them to blend.
Yeah.
You want to go that more eco wood or something that'll naturally age and just kind of blend in with all the dead brush and just kind of disappear.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Well, this has been a fun discussion. I've got my really awful notes here that I've been making, and I'm sure I left something out. But I'll kind of go through the categories, and we'll see what we come up with for the consensus. What's the perfect yard? So on the bees, it looks like Mutt's kind of won out on the bees, uh, with a little. We kind of like the Carniolans also mix, and Michael likes his Russians. The type of hive, it looks like wood won out on the type of hives. Uh, we're split between 8 and 10 frames, so we don't have a clear winner there. The we're split on let's see, solids and screens. We're kind of split. Wax hives, wax dip looks like it won out as far as a finish. Um, and as far as location, we wanted out of sight. We want access to water, but not too much water. We don't want to get stuck. We want diverse forage. I like to have it close to the house. Um, no garden in the area where we'll be buzzing the gardeners too much. Some cameras would be great so we can see what's going on, easy access, and a windbreak. So I guess that's our perfect bee yard. So, but it sounds like most of us are fairly content with what we have.
So, Keith, I have a little comment about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You know, something that disheartens me is arguments. I don't like. I'm a kind of person. I don't like arguments. I like a good discussion or debate, but not just arguments for no reason. And that, you know, what you just said, that makes a really good point. Is that you know, I use 10 frame and other people use 8 frame, and one is not better over the other. You're a winner if that is what you want to use and what's working for you. Where you lose is when you are closed and you won't say, well, maybe I should try singles instead of doubles and see what that world is like, because I don't know, you know, where those advantages are and whatnot until I actually do it. So that's where you lose. But to make your choices, to make your decisions, you know, I described all kinds of reasons that I chose the frames that I choose. I'm very fussy about my frames. But that's not everybody's choices, and I'm completely fine with that. You don't have to use what I use. I'm okay if you don't. It's not that you're not as smart as I am if you don't do what I'm doing. I don't like it when people get into those arguments. Yeah, well, that doesn't, you know, you have to do it my way. And, you know, I just think people should find a system that works for them and use that system and be completely okay with that. Not let anybody tell them that they don't know what they're doing because they're doing something different than everybody else or whatever. Having said that, when you start out, it's really good to do things that everybody else does, because that's kind of the momentum. Other people can help you because they know what you're doing, they know what you're using. But as you try different systems and whatnot, you have to develop your own way and your own path, your own management style. So, you know, that's just my comment on what's better. What I always say, what's the best way? The way that you hate the least. That's the best way.
Yeah. Well, I think we pretty much
something to hate about everything.
If nothing else, I think we proved here that we're using all kinds of different stuff, and it all works.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, you know, looking at some of the comments, you know, as far as I think it was Eric said somebody told him if he didn't use screen bottom boards, all his colonies was dies and he was doomed. But screens work, solids work, 8s work, 10s work, wood works, plastic work. It all works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the equipment is just kind of, I'm not going to say a small part of it, but the beekeeper has a bit to do with it.
That's right.
Whether it works or not. So
I would say more than half of those decisions are beekeeper related and not bee related, right?
Definitely.
They're not decided by what will work for the bees. The bees are so resilient; they fix most of our problems, and they'll make a hive in an old tire given the chance.
Oh yeah.
So the choices are what works for you. What do you like to manage?
Yeah.
Yep.
But Brad, they're
kinda-
definitely good. I'm sorry, Glee, go ahead.
Brad kind of hit on, just brushed by something there. When somebody's starting out, though, they don't know what they don't know, and
No.
and for that reason, find somebody, go to the local bee clubs and listen to who's talking. Somebody in the room's going to be you got to do it my way or the highway, but there's going to be other people in the room that are maybe a little more quiet, that are successfully keeping their bees alive year after year. Those are the ones.
That's the key.
Go do what
Success.
they're doing. And then once you get a couple of years under your belt, then
Right.
start to figure out, hey, wait a minute, the way Tom does something, I kind of like
Yeah.
that. Can I make that work? Because when I started, I overwintered with my entrances wide open with upper ventilation, and I was taught you got to have that airflow through the hive. You got to vent off that warm moisture. And now I'm doing just the opposite. But I overwintered that way for several years just fine. Does it work? Sure. Do I think this other may be a little bit better? Maybe.
Yeah,
So
great point.
Yeah.
I've always told people this. I'm like, don't take advice from somebody who is not where you want to be or not where you're going. And
Exactly.
that can work for so many life choices. I'm not going to go to a financial advisor and ask him for advice if the guy's broke and can't pay his bills. That's probably a poor decision.
Good analogy.
you never trust
I
the
really-
skinny chef.
Oh, hey, trust me, I actually worked for a financial advisor that couldn't pay his bill to me. I'm not going to go down this road. And I was surprised that people would actually utilize this guy. I'm like, wow. I keep
But
my comments to myself on that whole deal.
You're right, Tom, in that comment that's a life principle. Hang
It is.
around people who look like who you want to be.
Yeah.
You don't have to be their equal. Actually, always hang around with people who you think are smarter and more successful than you,
That's right.
because it's contagious.
I think some of the problem in beekeeping is we don't often see the results. We don't see, some things like, I said last week, I used to shoot a lot. Like, I could see the results. I could see who shot better than I do. I could instantly see who was better than me and who wasn't. And the people who are better than me, I listened to. Sometimes in beekeeping, we don't get to see the end results. We hear people, oh, well, this works great, and I did this, and I did that. But we don't see the bottom line is not as clear in beekeeping as it is in some other stuff.
Yeah.
There's a little more indication of that. And my objectives when I started was a small commercial operation. I could actually make some money and, blah, blah, blah. So then I looked for people who ran commercial beekeeping operations and looked like they weren't about to go bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
They looked like they were sustainable. They looked like they were making money. But again, you never really know. However, that was my objective. So that's who I hung around with. People who looked like what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most definitely. This is why I try to hang out with JW. The only downfall I see is I get grumpy. I don't know. Is that a bad thing?
Yeah,
I'm only
that's
50.
contagious too.
I know, right? I go
Yeah.
there and get grumpy with them. No, I just mess
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Bad news, Tom. That's probably going to get worse.
How
Well,
dare
I am
you?
50, and I have found that there are certain things that I am less tolerable over, and I just walk away from these things because it's not worth the effort, time, and energy that I maybe at a younger version of myself would put into it, So I guess I don't know. Some people might call that maturity. I'm not sure that works well in my case because I'm not sure that I'm that guy, but still nonetheless.
Good deal. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to close this thing out. I think this has been a very interesting conversation tonight. A lot of good information. I think our summary on what works, what don't work. I think there was a good lesson to be learned there. It can all work. It's there's not a lot of definites in beekeeping where you can use the words always and never. Beekeeping don't work that way.
There's only one absolute. There are no absolutes.
The only one was what
Like
was
Fight Club.
what was the quote somebody had about don't breed from dead queens? What
That
was
was Randy Oliver. Never
Yeah.
breed from a dead queen.
Yeah, no, that one's probably a pretty good one. That one probably.
Now that is an absolute too, isn't
yeah,
it?
that's the one absolute. We could use that one for the one absolute.
I'm telling you what, if you can do that, I have some questions for you.
I had a 3-year-old queen in one of my yards that I was just, I wanted, she was doing gangbusters coming out of winter, 3 years. And I thought, okay, that's the one I'm going to graft off that queen. I went out to graft off it. She was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go.
Oh well, it was a good idea. But I want to thank everybody over in the chat. It's good to see y'all in here. I really do appreciate the support on these Thursday night chats. I hope we're providing y'all with some good information, some good usable information, and we're also having a good time. That's part of it. I always like to say keep beekeeping fun, and I really mean that. When beekeeping's not fun, it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I appreciate it. We'll see y'all same time next week. We'll try to have another good topic. I want to appreciate all the guests that are in here tonight, guys. I appreciate y'all coming in. It's been a lot of fun. So
I want to thank Keith. Keith's a good host. He puts on a good show. Thanks, Keith.
Does a good job.
thank you, Brad. I enjoy doing this. I'm having fun. So with that, we'll close this thing out. Y'all have a great week and stay cool.
Night, everybody.
Night.